I'm having an existential crisis, and
no need to worry. We are having beer with Justin Butterworth, founder of Snug, and we'll come to that shortly. Ex-founder, do you say that when you exit it? Or founder?
Post-exit entrepreneur.
Oh, okay. That's a new term, of Rent-A-Home.
Indeed.
Great stuff. Good to have you here.
Great, thanks for having me.
So Justin, let me get this straight. When you are 38 years old, you walk out of a building carrying $29 million in cash, unmarked bills, when you exited Rent-A-Home.
Almost.
That's a good day. Was that something that you had been working towards? Was that like a target you ever had?
With the absolute enthusiasm and naivety of youth, I thought I could achieve a $20 million sale in 3 years.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was over time, but over budget, thankfully.
Yeah. What was the elevator pitch of Rent-A-Home?
Yeah, so Rent-A-Home was the first business to create an e-commerce holiday rental website.
Yeah.
And it was bringing together a really fragmented market in the holiday rental space. I'll never forget the first customer that booked on Rent-A-Home. He was this chap from the UK who worked on luxury cruise ships that would dock in a town for 2 weeks. And I met him at the apartment that was booked. It was the very first booking, $3,000 from the UK.
Yeah.
And you know, I went with the owner, and we were inside the apartment. Yeah. He arrives as a guest and opened the front door, and we both looked at each other. We couldn't believe the internet was sort of so real, so reliable.
Like there was actually someone there.
Yeah, indeed. Looking back at the Rent-A-Home business, I had no idea that it would be such a pioneer and so transformative. And I think there was no more satisfying moment than seeing the Rent-A-Home business, its logo, in the pitch deck of Airbnb to Sequoia in 2009 on page 9 of this 12-page pitch deck. So
along this timeline, pre-Rent-A-Home and up until now, you've been through a thing or two. When did you ever lose your way?
September 11 came along. We were in the travel business. And of course, when that occurred,
it was just done.
The phones didn't ring, and the website made no bookings for about 48 hours. And I had to go and check the cables and see that we actually had a dial tone. And I thought, oh no, like this is the end. And I realized that every year there was a disaster. And during every disaster, I doubled down and became a better business. Yeah. And so I wouldn't say that I relish the dark times, but in those times, it clears out the weak competitors.
So how is, I mean, the fact that you exited that business maybe in such a fortunate way, but just the fact that you exited it, how has that affected how you now think and operate as you start up your new venture?
Yeah, so it's so interesting that having exited that business over what was an 11, 12-year journey, the first thing I took out of my shareholder agreement in forming this current business is no clause to exit the business within 5 years, which is typical for a VC firm to look for. And it was making a very clear decision and statement to say, I'm committing a good chunk of my life and a good chunk of my net worth to solving a problem and to not driving a business just to exit.
From your personal war chest perspective, put it that way, are you really putting that much on the line? I mean, you're not going to be without tacos, at night. What kind of risk are you taking, would you say?
So for example, I sold my house and committed to renting because I believe you need to have complete authenticity with your product or your brand, whatever industry you're in. Yeah. I have a small place in Byron Bay, and I rented that out. So I became a customer within the Snug concept, a renter, a landlord, and a member of a rental community. So yeah, I think it's more than just balance sheet commitment. I think it's a commitment of mind and heart.
Yeah, it's a central marketplace to rent your home. Would that be correct?
Yeah, correct. It's all about the fit between good people and good property.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is to create a platform that allows renters and owners and agents to come together and find a better fit.
Do you think that we will be moving towards an environment where we are more likely to rent our home than to own it, and therefore being more flexible?
If you walked into a financial advisory firm and told your advisor that you wanted to invest in just one equity stock, they would think you're mad.
Yeah.
If you walk into a real estate agency and say that you want to buy one house, that's 90% of your net wealth, located in a single property, in a single street, subject to all sorts of external factors, with no portfolio diversification, a lot of leverage. And so I think the future model is really long-term rental with fractional ownership of property, so that you might own 5% of 20 properties and rent your own home for the stage of life that you're at.
You could say that this development is already happening in terms of more and more people rent, but yet that's not really a behavioral change because they're just outpriced.
Yeah, correct.
Right. So I'm just, just sort of digging through, I guess, what's what.
Yeah. So part of the trend is driven by outrageous price growth, but I do think that there's a generational trend. Millennials that are reconsidering the need for consumption and for ownership. Do you need to own your music collection if you can stream? Do you need to own DVDs? Do you need to own your car if you can ride share and so forth?
But is it basically a bet that we will get as emotionally detached to our home as we became to our cars?
Potentially.
How much money do you have in Australian Starbucks, invested in Australian Starbucks right now?
I just needed to defrag after what was a really big decade. And so I spent the time just really giving back, just connecting and learning. So it included going to Burning Man, attending tech conferences on the West Coast.
Sacrifices.
Big sacrifices. Investing in 23 startups, and ploughing $1 million back into the Australian ecosystem. My quickest deals have been a coffee, 30 minutes and $30,000.
Yeah. What is normally your first opinion or guidance to such a business? What do you look at? What page of the deck do you spend a couple of extra seconds on?
So I start with market size. Is it a meaningful market size? It needs to be $1 billion market. The second is a validated problem that is acute, that's tangible, that you can talk to customers and know that that problem exists. The third is really understanding the solution that that business proposes to bring to market, and getting a sense of whether it's unique, it's patentable, and it's sustainable as a defensive proposition. So it's market size, it's problem, it's solution, and then I look at the team and I ask myself, are these the right people to bring this solution to a giant market that has this problem?
What's your best versus worst business decision?
Gee, that's a good question. I think my worst business decision was to not raise capital.
Okay, yeah.
And by not...
Because it slowed you down, or?
Yeah, so I had a lot more of a smaller pie. And to the earlier sort of story I told about rent-a-home appearing in the Airbnb pitch deck, imagine what had happened if you put $100 million into rent-a-home 10 years before Airbnb. It's been a great pleasure
Best of luck
to chat. Thanks so much.
Thanks for coming on.